Today I'm going to show you the full process of designing a thumbnail from the start to the end. So I'll be making a thumbnail for this channel here. I've been talking to him about his thumbnails and I said I would help him out and make this thumbnail for him. So this here is his kind of style for his thumbnails. So it's going to be reasonably similar to that because that's what his audience expects. But he also specifically said that he likes this style here. So this is Max Fosh, a very popular YouTuber, and this style here of a creator called Ed Pratt. So this here is kind of the inspiration that we're going with. And I haven't done any preparation for this video. So this works if you are designing for yourself or if you're a thumbnail designer designing for a client. Either way, it is the same process. All right, so the video that I'm designing a thumbnail for is called How I Found the UK's Rarest Animals, the Full Story. He said this may change, but the concept will stay the same. I think the thumbnail needs to feature myself and a Scottish wildcat, which is the UK's rarest animal, and clear text, potentially the word wildcat, which I disagree with, which I'll get to. So yeah, that's all the information that I have. So let's jump straight into the design process. So the first thing that I do when designing a thumbnail is the Pictionary test, which is this game that I came up with just to make thumbnail design a lot easier. A lot of people get very overwhelmed with thumbnail design and they're like, okay, where do I start? There's just so many different ways I could do this. You might start doing research and looking at popular thumbnails and stuff. The best way that I found to do this is to play the Pictionary game. So if you've played Pictionary before, basically the goal is to draw something as quickly as you can to beat the other team. So you are trying to draw the object or the scenario, whatever it is, as quickly as possible. And thumbnail design is very similar, where you're trying to get the scenario across as quick as possible. So we're going to play the Pictionary game here. The first thing here that we need is the character. So it is this guy here. So there he is. The next thing that we want to know is the rarest animal. So it's a wildcat, which is like a cat. So I'm just going to do a terrible drawing of a cat here. There we go. Okay, so this guy is looking at this cat. Now we need to understand where this takes place, because right now it's just a guy looking at a cat. So ideally, in the background here, we have somehow very obvious that it's Scotland, the Scottish wilderness. So we have component number 1, which is the cat, component number 2, which is him, and then we have the background, which is providing context. A rule that I really recommend in thumbnail design, if you haven't seen this channel before, is you only want a background that has detail in it if it is providing context to the video. And because the cat is only found in Scotland, the background needs to provide that context. If we take one of my videos as an example, the background doesn't need any detail because I'm just talking to the camera and filming my screen. So it doesn't make sense to have a background with detail because it wouldn't provide any more context to what the video is about. All right, and now the last thing is, what text should we have up here? So he wants to have the text wildcat up here, which I very much disagree with, to be honest. So here's his audience. There's this framework called CCN framework by this guy called Paddy Galloway, who's really cool. So this here is your audience. So here we have your core. So this is your core audience. This is people who watch every single video, and most likely they are very big nerds about whatever subject that you talk about. So for him, his audience would most likely be very much wildlife enthusiasts of specifically the UK. Most of his videos are to do with looking for rare wildlife in the UK. Then the next C here is casual. So his casual audience are probably, they're kind of into wildlife. They don't watch every single one of his videos, just the ones that really stand out to them and sound super interesting. And they're probably not wildlife experts. Then lastly, we have new. So these are people that haven't seen any of his videos and most likely aren't going to be the biggest wildlife nerds, and they definitely won't be super aware of every single species and where they live, etc. So the problem here is if we write wildcat here, that will only, wildcat, there we go, that will only appeal to the core audience because they'll know, hey, spotting a wildcat in Scotland, that's pretty rare. But for someone outside of the UK, or even people in the UK who don't know what animals are rare in the UK and all of those details, these two groups of people here won't find wildcat as an interesting premise. So this text here needs to create curiosity, which wildcat doesn't really do, and it also needs to spell out the story very clearly. So if we just take a look at these two examples here, so these are the ones he sent. We have Max Foch, we understand who's the character of the video, and we have the story. So a go-kart being driven by an F1 driver. So even if you don't know the title of this video, you kind of understand the premise of the video quite quickly. So we have this guy is either going to race as or race against this F1 driver in go-karting. And it's an interesting curiosity gap of what happens when an F1 driver races go-karting. And then we have this one here, 20 days on a unicycle. That's a very interesting premise. I have all of these questions. How did he pull that off, etc.? It's an interesting premise. I also very much like this here. That's a really cool effect. I think this background here is awesome, and we're going to take some inspiration from that. So I think what we'll do is design this and then make sure we leave some space up here for the text. All right, so he sent me a bunch of photos to use. This here makes it a lot easier instead of using screenshots from a video. Basically, what we want to do is find the best expression here. So as this is a rare animal, we probably want a shocked face or something like that. He's surprised. How did he manage to spot it? I do like this one, him looking into the distance like he just spotted it. So I'll just bring that in here, but I'll keep looking. Oh, cool. And then he has photos of the actual animal. So this is a Scottish wildcat. So these are really good photos. This will make it a lot easier. It's a great photo. I think this photo here would work pretty well. I actually think this one here is the best one to use. All right, so in this step now, all I'm going to do is cut these out, and they are going to be very, very badly done. But all I want to do is work on the composition. That's all I want to think about. So him here, I think that is a good idea. Like that. Obviously, I'll remove the logo on the shirt. Any small details like that. This is a pet peeve of mine. Thumbnail designers need to remove any details like this. I always see on hats and shirts and microphones, the logo of a company. It just really annoys me. It just adds more detail to a thumbnail and confuses the audience. All right, so we've got him here. And now the next thing is the cat. So here's the thing. Like I was talking about with the core casual new, people who are the core audience, they will understand that this is a rare animal. And they'll be like, oh, that's the Scottish wildcat. That's a really rare animal. The problem is, though, it just looks like a house cat to the average person. So the average person won't be like, wow, what a rare animal, because it just looks like a house cat. So I think what we have to do is make it obvious that this animal is super rare. That actually gives me an idea on the text that we should have here. So I don't know how many there are. I'll look it up after. But let's say there's only 70 left in the world. Obviously, that reads a bit confusing, but something like that. So I might say population 70 or something like that. Another idea would actually be to pixelate this and kind of go for a Bigfoot kind of thumbnail vibe. So if I search for Bigfoot on YouTube and then do filter and search by the view count, now I'm seeing the most viewed videos with the word Bigfoot in it. So, all right, that's a bike called the Bigfoot. These are video games. I might do Bigfoot sighting instead. All right, something like this works quite well because it's so difficult to see what it is. Same idea for this one. Bigfoot is real. Okay. All right, so these are all very similar. We have a red circle. So I think we could do the same for this one. We'll have a circle here, very grainy, and then maybe the word rare or something. They're my two ideas. And then this here would be super pixelated. All right, let's work with that. All right, so now what I want to do is find a background here. So I'll use Unsplash. If you haven't used Unsplash before, it's very good and it's free. Scottish Wilderness. This image here is pretty good. That one's pretty good. This one's decent as well. One thing to bear in mind with thumbnail design, I find images like this quite difficult to work with because you have the dark spots here with the trees and stuff, and then you have the light spots with the sky, which just means it can be difficult to have a very clear focal point. So I prefer working with either the whole image being dark or light. So this one here is better. So I'll download that. All right, that can be one background, but as you can see, this is already taking shape quite well. I think I want to find another one where it's so obviously Scotland. What is the most Scotland looking thing? This looks quite Scottish. So I think this here might be the perfect photo. And this is going to be really easy to work with. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'll hide these and this one here now, the photo of him. What I want to do now is a much better job of just cutting him out here from the background. So I'll go over the details and stuff. Something really difficult in thumbnail design is this here, as you can see, glasses, because they displace, which is difficult to work with. So I think we might just have to leave that. If the background is green though, it will make sense. So that's okay, but quite annoying. Beards are also actually really annoying to work with, especially my beard, especially if I haven't shaved. It makes it very difficult to work with. All right, and then down here, what we're going to do is just remove the logo You don't want any details in here that aren't necessary. And then his arm here is being cut off just because of how the photo was taken. So there's two ways we could fix this. We could either extend it by highlighting it, doing window, selecting the taskbar here and saying fill in this spot. Or the other way of doing it is simply to just do this and kind of carry on down to the bottom point and delete, and it still looks very natural. All right, so we have him here, and what I'm going to do is duplicate it, just Command J if you're using Photoshop, and then right click, and we'll do this into a smart object. I'll hide this bar here as well. All right, so we have him here. Now what I'm going to do is let's do this background first, because the lighting is going to be different for the two backgrounds. So for this one, I'll do the one where it says like 70 left or whatever it is. I'll obviously look up the number. So what I'm going to do is get the photo of the cat here, and I'll cut this out as well. Again, using Photoshop's remove background feature. It just does a really good job. Convert to smart object. And as you can see here, there's a couple of details that need fixing. So I'll make this into a smart layer, and here just remove any of the details here that might have been missed. All right, so we have this cat here. I'll just duplicate this cat here so we can use it for the next thumbnail. All right, so now I need to find a place to put this cat. So I will flip him horizontally and put him somewhere here. So in this one, I won't pixelate the cat, and then I'll pixelate it in the next thumbnail just to see which one performs better. If you are very new to thumbnail design, when you upload a YouTube video, you can A/B/C test 3 thumbnails. And this is really important to do. It can give you a basically 3 times higher chance of going viral with your video. I'll actually just convert this smart object again and then create another layer mask. And what I'm going to do here is soften this brush like that and start cutting it out like that. So it's almost like he's hiding in the bushes here. Now, obviously this doesn't look super realistic because he's very large. So I'll have to make him smaller. But if he's too small, we won't be able to see him. So, right now I'm editing in Photoshop. So I'm editing very close like this so I can see all the details. But the average person is going to see it this far away. So you have to bear that in mind when editing. People are going to see it very small. All right, so this cat now, we're going to fix the lighting. So I'll go to Filter and click on Camera Raw Filter. Now it's got like this blue hue, so we're going to change that. So I'm going to add a bit of green and a bit of orange, add some texture, and then here what I'm going to do is add a bit of contrast, decrease the highlights, probably hide less of the shadows so we can tell more clearly. Something like that, I think. Yeah, so it's easier to see the cats. I still think the saturation and hue is wrong. So what I'll do is just bring it in here. Might even decrease the saturation. That would fix it. All right, so this layout is looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is obviously change this text now that says 70 left. Scottish wildcat population. It's estimated between 100 and 300 cats left. So what we're going to do is round that down to 100. And I need to think of a good way to say that there's 100 left in the wild. This background here is very detailed, which is very difficult to work with. I am actually thinking we change the background here. Maybe only 100 left. All right, so this here with the sky just makes it a lot easier to see what's going on. I'm going to see if Photoshop does a good job with this. So what I'm going to do is just put these 3 in a layer here. And now I'm going to see if I can do Photoshop's add blue sky. All right, so that did a terrible job. This one here, though, might actually work better. You know what? It will. I'm going to remove this tree here as well. Just say remove tree. All right, so I'll combine these layers here and turn that into a smart object. What I'm now going to do is add a filter, add a blur, and add a Gaussian blur. This here now will be something like that, I actually think. And what I'm going to do is add a gradient from the bottom, so the bottom is in focus, but the top is not. So like that, because now this is a lot easier to read, which is really important for thumbnail design. If you can't read it clearly, it's bad. I think I'll make this larger here, like that. Only 100 left. And what I'll do is add a stroke, make sure it's on the outside, a bit larger like that, and add a drop shadow as well. So now it's a lot easier to read. So only 100 left. I still think this cat doesn't stand out very much. So I'm going to play with the levels here. I think that looks better. And the light is actually hitting the cat at the right angle as well. what I'll do is make the eyes stand out a bit more, I think. So I'm just going to highlight the eyes like this, then do Command-C, Command-V, make that into a smart object, and I will just do brightness, increase. That just stands out a lot more, makes the cat look, I don't know, you can actually see it now. All right, so only 100 left. Now, obviously, we need a red arrow because that's the rule. All right, I'll use this one here. So only 100 left. And then we'll make that red, of course. All right, I think that looks good. And now we're going to fix him. By the way, if you're still watching, remember this is only thumbnail 1. I'm going to make the second thumbnail as well. Okay, so when editing faces for thumbnails, I like to add some texture. And then I like to scroll down, add some sharpening, and also add some noise reduction, which I know is a bit weird, but this is just what I like doing. So what I'll do is increase the light here as well. Increase this and the shadows as well. By the way, if you want me to make a tutorial just on how to use Camera Raw filter for editing faces in thumbnails, then let me know. I'm also going to fix the levels here on this one. Something like that. There we go. I think that looks much better. I want it to look kind of mysterious, you know, that kind of vibe, because he is spotting a rare animal. So I think this is a really good thumbnail 1. So what I'll do here is Command-J and copy this here, so I can reuse him for the second thumbnail. And all of this here, I will put into thumbnail 1. So for the second thumbnail, we'll go with this background here and see how that goes. And we're going to have different text for this one. So what was the text we were going to use? That's right, rare. And we're going to have a circle around him. And we are going to pixelate it, I think. So I can delete that. All right, so I'll have him edit, transform, flip horizontal. I think we'll have him poking around the corner here. This might not make a lot of sense. That doesn't look realistic. If it's any smaller, it just didn't make any sense. I think for the size to make sense, we could have it here, which would kind of make sense. So now what I want to do is hide it with boulders and rocks and stuff. So I'll just highlight this area here. I'll hide him, hide the word rare. And of course, using Photoshop Generative Fill, add rocks. Okay, it actually did a fantastic job. That's, wow. Okay, that's not what I expected, but that's actually better than I expected. So yeah, we'll definitely use that. Okay. That looks really cool. I think what we're going to do, this is going to be test B and C. So we have thumbnail A, which we made. This is going to be thumbnail B and C. So the two versions are going to be one where it's pixelated and one where it's not pixelated. So we'll start obviously with the one that's not pixelated. So the text here is going to be, what did we say? We said rare. I can't decide if the term rare builds enough of a curiosity gap. We really want to build as much of a curiosity gap here as possible. So rare might just not sound that, you know, exciting. Maybe like exclusive footage, unseen footage. So I just searched for rare animal footage. This one here, first photograph ever, which isn't true. Rare footage of extinct animals. I'm just trying to find some words that would work here. I'll search by view count. I think for the C of the ABC test, this style here is what we're going to be doing. So I'll just save this here, just so I can use it for inspiration later. I think unseen footage could work. Maybe rare footage. And now what I'll do is just make the background with the cat and everything here larger, because we want everything taking up as much space as possible. And right now, this space here isn't providing any context, so it's just wasted space. So I'll group them together, do Command-J, and then do Convert to Smart Object. So now we have all of that as one image. There we go, make it larger. That is 10 times better. I also quite like that these lines here are going towards the cat, which is just nice for the eye to be drawn into the subject. And I think, honestly, we don't need to edit it any more than that. I'll duplicate this red arrow here from the other one and bring it in. All right, so we have rare footage. I think this works really well, actually. I'm just going to clean up some of these layers here. There's just a lot going on. So we have thumbnail number 1, which I quite like. Then we have thumbnail number 2, which I also very much like. Now what I'm going to do is duplicate that thumbnail. And now I'm going to edit this background here. So what I'll do is add some motion blur. So it's like an action shot. That looks quite good. And I think what I'll do is just highlight this cat here. Blur, add a radial blur and increase that by quite a bit. Something like that. Maybe that's a bit too much, so I'll decrease the opacity here. I think what I'll also do here is add some, some grain. So noise, add noise, something like that. Add noise to the background as well. Noise, add noise. Yep, this looks like very rare footage now. And then I think we'll add some overlay here, like a gray overlay. Saturation, just do that. So this footage now looks very rare and mysterious. And then let's change the text here for this one. So what could this be? I found it. That makes this sound extremely rare. And then of course, we'll add a red circle. So I'll go to Edit, Stroke, change this to red here and click on OK. This obviously looks a bit more, clickbaity, one of these. But if he found it, it's obviously not clickbait. I think I'll add that, but just not make it super prominent, something like that. I'll do the same for the arrow for this one as well, actually. Decrease that, like that. All right, so it's been 58 minutes of recording. Obviously, I am going to cut this down so you don't have to watch a 58-minute long video. But here we have thumbnail number 3, thumbnail number 2, and thumbnail number 1. I'll send these off to him. Hopefully he likes them, and this is the ABC test that he does. All right, so he's posted the video, and he sent me the results a day after it came out and a few days after it came out. So we can get some results from that, and the difference is quite interesting as well. So this is when it initially came out here. So we can see 15.7 thousand impressions, 5.7 CTR, which is pretty good, a really good audience retention, and 1.3 thousand views. And here you can see the ABC test. We have this one here, thumbnail 1, 32.9%, and this one here, 32.6%. So they didn't do too well. This one was a clear standout with 34.5%. However, what's interesting is, after a few days, he sent me this. So now it has 130,000 impressions, which is awesome. It's gone down to 4.6% CTR. That makes sense though. You get more impressions, gets pushed out to more people. The CTR is going to decrease most likely. Still a really good audience retention, 10,000 views at this point. And here we can see the new data. So as you can see, it's slightly different. Now the winner is this one here, thumbnail 1 with 34.7%. So initially this one was winning and then it switched to this one here, which is a really interesting insight on his audience. So his main audience want to click this, but the people watching who aren't in his core audience, they found this one here more enticing. So that's a really interesting thing for him to bear in mind in future videos. And you can see that it performed the best out of his past 4 videos. So 11,000 views after just 2 days, whereas these here, 8,000 views after 5 days, 3,000 views after 3 weeks, 10,000 views after 1 month. So it performed really well on his channel. I hope you found this interesting. If you did, please let me know in the comments your main takeaway. And if you genuinely found this interesting, I can do more of these, as it is a very different video to my typical video. Now, if you're thinking, hey, why didn't you talk about saturation and contrast that much? Then click on this video here where I do a full deep dive into thumbnail design and the stuff that you should actually be thinking about when you're designing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in this video.